The cold bit into her bones like knives. Alice's eyes snapped open, salt water stinging them as her body thrashed weakly against the crushing pull of the ocean. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious, only that the storm was gone now, leaving a silence that felt cruel in its aftermath. Debris floated around her, splintered wood, a broken mast, the lifeless silence of a ship swallowed whole. Her arms flailed, desperate and weak, trying to keep her head above water as the sky above blurred into a gray haze. Her chest burned. Every muscle screamed. Just as her vision dimmed, a shadow fell over her. At first, she thought it was death, an angel or a demon, but then a rope splashed into the water, and rough, calloused hands gripped her shoulders, hauling her upward with startling strength. She gasped as she broke the surface, coughing violently as the scent of pitch and salt and iron invaded her senses. Voices echoed. Boots thudded. The creaking of a deck. A woman's voice, sharp and commanding, sliced through the fog in her mind. Get her below. Now. Alice barely registered the blur of faces. Women. All of them. Before her eyes rolled back and everything went black. When she woke again, it was not to the warmth of rescue, but to the chill of confinement. The room was dim, the walls wooden, swaying gently with the movement of waves. A porthole let in a sliver of moonlight. Her wrists ached bound. She jerked against the restraints and winced. Easy, girl. You'll hurt yourself, came a voice from the corner. It was low and smooth, like aged drum. Alice turned her head. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, with dark hair pulled into a loose braid and eyes like storm clouds, cold, calculating, and impossible to look away from. A scar curved from the woman's cheekbone down to her jaw, giving her a kind of brutal beauty that made Alice's breath catch. Who are you? Alice rasped. The woman stepped closer, boots tapping on the wooden floor. She leaned in just enough for Alice to see the faint smirk playing on her lips. Captain Morgana, you're aboard my ship, the Leviathan, and you, little castaway, are my guest. Alice glared. Tied up like this? Some hospitality. Morgana shrugged. Forgive the inconvenience. It's not every day someone stumbles across the hiding place of a wanted pirate crew. I didn't stumble anywhere, Alice snapped. My ship sank. I almost died. And yet you lived, Morgana murmured, reaching out to brush a wet strand of hair from Alice's face. Curious, isn't it? The sea took your ship, but spared you. Her touch was oddly gentle, in contrast to the steel in her voice. Alice jerked her head away. Let me go. I'm afraid that's not possible. You saw too much. If the Navy finds out where we are, I don't even know where I am. Alice shouted. Morgana's expression didn't change. But you could find your way back. I can't take that risk. Alice's heart pounded. So, what? You're keeping me prisoner? A pause. Then, with infuriating calm, let's say, you're staying until I trust you not to betray me. Alice opened her mouth to argue, but Morgana turned and strode toward the door, her long coat sweeping behind her. Just before stepping out, she looked back. Eat something. You'll need your strength. Life on a Leviathan isn't for the delicate. And then she was gone. Alice lay back against the rough bedding, fury and fear swirling in her chest. But beneath them, something else lingered, something she hated herself for noticing. The way Morgana had looked at her, the way her voice had softened, just for a moment. She shook the thought away. She had to get out, had to survive. And yet, as the ship swayed beneath her, she couldn't help but feel that her fate had shifted, that being pulled from the sea by that woman hadn't been the end. It had been the beginning. Alice didn't know how long she'd been confined below deck. Time blurred into an endless rhythm of creaking wood, muffled footsteps above, and the distant crash of waves against the hull. Food arrived twice a day, always delivered by a woman with sharp eyes and a scar across her brow who said nothing, only dropped the tray and left. No windows, no clocks, no answers. She'd screamed herself hoarse the first day, demanded freedom, demanded to speak to Morgana again. No one came. She kicked the door. Pounded it. Threatened. Pleaded. Bargained. Nothing. On the third day, the door finally opened. Sunlight blinded her. The figure standing there cast a long shadow. "You want out," the woman said. Not Morgana, someone younger, leaner, with a bandana tied over tight curls. "Then get moving. You've got chores now."
Chores.
Apparently being a prisoner didn't mean lying in a cell all day. It meant working alongside the crew she wanted to escape from. Alice was thrown into the chaos of the Leviathan's daily routine, swabbing decks, hauling ropes, cleaning the galley. Under constant watch, always flanked by 2 armed women. The crew never hurt her, but they didn't speak to her either, at least not beyond commands. Until the 4th day. A short redhead with a mischievous grin approached her during cleaning duty, tossed her a rag, and said, "You scrub like a noblewoman. Ever touched a bucket before?" Alice glared but said nothing. The girl laughed. "Name's Rena. You can hate us all you want, but the salt's not coming off this floor by itself." Eventually they talked. A little. Between orders. Between waves. Alice learned their names. Their scars. Their reasons for being here. Women discarded by husbands, accused of crimes they didn't commit, or just tired of living beneath someone else's thumb. And slowly, the Leviathan started to feel less like a prison and more like something else. Not home. Not yet. But not hell either. Morgana remained distant. Watching. Silent. Commanding from above, but rarely engaging with Alice directly. Until one night. Alice couldn't sleep. The air below deck was too thick, too hot. She climbed quietly to the upper deck, planning to sit alone by the railing, just for a breath of cool wind. But Morgana was already there. Alone. Standing at the edge of the ship, coat fluttering in the breeze, a bottle dangling loosely in her hand. "Couldn't sleep either?" Morgana said without turning. Alice hesitated. "Didn't think you'd notice." Morgana finally looked at her. Her eyes in the moonlight were softer than Alice remembered, still sharp, but tired. "I notice everything on my ship." "Funny," Alice said, walking slowly toward the railing. "Since it's your ship, I thought maybe you'd let me off it by now. And yet here you are."
Alive.
Breathing. Eating. Morgana's voice was cool again, but not cruel. "I didn't have to rescue you." "No," Alice said, folding her arms. "You just had to chain me like an animal and trap me in the dark." A flash of something crossed Morgana's face. Guilt?
No.
Too quick. Too buried. "I did what I had to," she said. "To protect what's mine. And I'm what now? Your possession?" "No," Morgana said, stepping closer. Her voice dropped, quieter. "But I am responsible for what happens to you, whether I like it or not." The silence between them stretched. The ship swayed gently. Stars glittered above, reflected in the water below. Morgana's gaze lingered on Alice's mouth for half a second, barely perceptible. But Alice noticed. Heat flared in her chest, unwanted, unwelcome. She stepped back. "Don't look at me like that," she snapped. Morgana arched an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Like you think I'm going to fall into your bed just because you saved my life." Morgana didn't flinch. "I don't want you in my bed, Alice." Her voice was low, unreadable. "I want you to stop looking at me like I'm your enemy." "You are," Alice whispered. "You took my freedom." Morgana nodded slowly.
Yes.
"And one day, if you decide to understand why, maybe I'll tell you everything. But not tonight." She turned away. "Go below. Storm's coming." Alice hesitated. The wind had picked up, cold and fast. She could smell it. Salt and danger. But it wasn't the storm she feared. It was how easily her heart had jumped when Morgana stepped closer. How some stupid part of her wanted to stay on that deck a little longer. She went below. Didn't sleep. That night, she dreamed of storms and silver eyes and a scarred hand brushing hair from her face. The storm came like a beast unleashed, devouring the sky in black clouds and shrieking wind. Alice had never seen the sea so violent. Rain hammered the deck, cold and merciless, soaking through her shirt in seconds. Thunder cracked above like cannon fire, and the sails of the Leviathan whipped and groaned under the strain. She didn't wait for orders, there was no time. The deck was chaos. Rena barked something she couldn't hear over the wind, gesturing wildly, and Alice ran to grab a line that had come loose, wrapping it around her wrist and hauling with all her strength. Her hands burned. The salt stung her eyes. Someone slipped beside her, tall, dark, sharp-eyed Morgana. "Hold it steady," she shouted, her voice like a whip through the storm. Alice didn't answer. She was too busy trying not to be thrown overboard. The ship tilted dangerously, and water crashed over the rails, sweeping across the deck and nearly knocking them all off their feet. Another flash of lightning illuminated the scene like a ghost story. Women fighting the sea with bare hands and callous strength, ropes snapping, sails flailing like wounded beasts. The Leviathan was alive beneath them, groaning with the weight of the storm, refusing to break. Alice found herself moving in sync with the others, not thinking, just reacting. One of the younger girls, Mira, screamed as a loose beam swung toward her, and Alice lunged without thinking, slamming into the girl and knocking them both out of the way. They hit the deck hard, but the beam missed them by inches. Mira stared at her, breathless. "You saved me," she gasped. Alice rolled onto her back, panting. "Don't make a habit of it." After what felt like hours, the storm began to weaken. The wind died slowly, like a monster losing interest. The sea calmed from chaos to menace, and finally to silence. Rain still fell, but softer now. Survivable. The crew was soaked, bruised, exhausted. But no one was dead. Alice stood at the edge of the deck, gripping the railing, her hair plastered to her face, clothes clinging to her skin. She watched the last of the storm vanish into the horizon. And then she heard it, scattered claps behind her. Applause. Rena was grinning. Didn't think the little stowaway had it in her. Another woman laughed. "She's got salt in her blood after all." Alice blinked, confused, as the women around her began to nod in approval. For the first time, she wasn't just tolerated. She was seen, valued, respected. Morgana stood a few feet away, arms crossed, her eyes unreadable. Alice met her gaze and held it. She expected a smirk or some half-insulting compliment. But all Morgana said was, "Below deck. All of you. We need to talk." It wasn't until the women gathered in the war room, maps unfurled, wet boots stomping on wood, that Alice understood the storm had only been the beginning. "We're being followed," Morgana announced, pointing at a dark spot on the chart. "This ship was spotted 2 days ago.
Fast. Small.
Painted black. They always show up after storms. Like vultures." "Privateers?" someone asked. "No," Morgana said. "Worse." A cold silence fell over the room. Rena frowned. "Ghosts." "Not ghosts," Morgana replied. "But close. They don't speak. Don't show colors. No flag, no name. Just a red lantern at the bow and fire in their wake." Alice swallowed hard. "And what do they want?" Morgana's gaze flicked to her. "Same thing everyone wants on these waters.
Blood.
Gold.
Power.
Or all three." That night, the ship sailed in tense silence. No one laughed. No one sang. Even the stars above seemed cautious. Alice couldn't sleep again. She paced the lower deck restlessly, nerves buzzing. And then the bell rang. 3 sharp clangs. The signal. Trouble. She ran topside just in time to see it, a shadow on the water, fast and low, gaining on them like a predator. The red lantern glowed, like an open wound. Cannons thundered. The ship shook. Screams erupted. Fire bloomed near the stern. Alice didn't think, she moved. Grabbed buckets. Helped drag a fallen crew member to safety. She saw Morgana fighting at the helm, barking orders, her coat flaring like wings. Another blast. Wood splintered. Alice stumbled, hit the rail, nearly toppled over. Then she saw it. Mira. Again, frozen in the open, directly in the path of a falling mast. "Move!" Alice screamed. Mira didn't. Without thinking, Alice shoved her aside, just as the mast came crashing down on top of her.
Darkness. Pain.
Then nothing. She woke to hands on her face, a voice hissing her name like a curse and a prayer.
Alice.
Alice, damn it, open your eyes. Morgana, closer than ever, holding her like she was something fragile, like something that mattered. Alice blinked through the haze of pain. Mira? Alive, Morgana said. Thanks to you. Foolish girl. You're welcome, Alice croaked. Morgana exhaled, shaking her head. Why would you do something so stupid? She was going to die, Alice murmured. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. I couldn't. Her breath caught as Morgana's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You shouldn't have risked yourself, she whispered. You don't belong to this ship. Alice flinched.
No.
I don't. Morgana's jaw tightened. She looked like she wanted to say more, something raw and unguarded, but she stood instead. You'll be fine.
Rest.
I'll speak to you in the morning. And she left. Alice lay in silence, heart pounding. She didn't know what hurt more, the bruises or the way Morgana had looked at her like she was breaking apart. The wound on Alice's shoulder ached with every breath. It wasn't deep, but it had left her weak, bandaged, and cursing every step that forced her back below deck. She hated being still, hated the way her body trembled with the remnants of adrenaline, with the scent of fire still lingering in her hair. She should have died. Again. And once more. It was Morgana who held her together, who forced her back to life with whispered curses and hands that were too gentle for someone who commanded with steel. The days after the attack passed in a blur of recovery. The strange black ship had vanished as quickly as it had come, but its damage lingered, splintered wood, scorched sails, and a crew walking on edge. No one spoke about it openly, but Alice heard the whispers. The Devil Lantern. The Sea's Ghost. A ship that only hunts women. Rena had tried to shrug it off with a laugh, but her eyes betrayed the truth. Whatever that ship was, it had marked them, and it would be back. Alice moved slowly, her arm in a sling, but she refused to stay in her cot. She worked, quietly,
Watched.
listened. The crew had shifted toward her. Not exactly friendly, but not cold either. There were nods now, half smiles, even jokes. When she passed Mira on the stairs, the girl touched her hand gently and whispered, "Thank you." Alice didn't know how to answer. She wasn't a hero. She was a prisoner who'd made a stupid decision. But no one treated her like a prisoner anymore. That was the strangest part. Morgana hadn't spoken to her since that night. Not directly. But Alice could feel her eyes across the deck, sharp and watchful. Measuring. Waiting. One evening, after the worst of the damage had been repaired, Morgana called a meeting. Not in the war room, but on the open deck, beneath a sky bruised with twilight. The crew gathered in a half-circle. Alice lingered at the edge, unsure if she belonged, but no one stopped her. Morgana stood at the center, arms crossed, her coat fluttering in the breeze. "We're heading east," she said simply. A murmur rose. Someone cursed. Someone else spat on the deck.
East.
Rena said, stepping forward. "Through the veil?" "Yes," Morgana said. "The Devil Lantern came from that direction. If we want to know who they are, what they want, that's where we'll find answers." Another woman, a tall blonde named Sabine, shook her head. "No ship sails through the veil and comes back." Morgana's eyes narrowed. "We're not most ships." The tension thickened. Alice stepped forward without thinking. "What's the veil?" Dozens of eyes turned to her. Morgana hesitated, then spoke, not to Alice, but to everyone. "It's a stretch of ocean shrouded in mist year-round. No maps. No stars. Compass needles spin useless. Ships vanish. Some say there's an island there. Others say it's cursed. Either way, it's where the Devil Lantern came from." A heavy silence fell. Then Rena stepped forward. "If you're going, I'm going." Sabine followed. "So am I." One by one, the crew nodded. Loyalty, without question. Alice watched, stunned. These women would follow Morgana into hell. She didn't understand it. Not fully. But something twisted in her chest when she looked at Morgana's face, steeled, determined, but haunted too. That night, Alice found herself climbing to the upper deck again. The stars were hidden behind a veil of clouds, and the wind had turned colder. Morgana stood alone at the bow. Alice approached slowly. "You're insane," she said softly. Morgana didn't turn. "You're not the first to think so. Why are you really doing this?" Alice asked. "Don't tell me it's just curiosity." A pause. Then, "It's not." Morgana looked out over the water. "That ship, the Devil Lantern, it's not the first time I've seen it." Alice frowned. "What?" "Years ago. Before the Leviathan, before the crew. I was on another ship. Merchant class. Hired protection. We were passing near the veil when it came. Same lantern. Same silence. No flag. It attacked without warning. Killed half the crew. Took the others." "And you?" Morgana turned to her then, slowly. "I was thrown overboard. I floated for 2 days before a fishing vessel found me. Everyone else gone. No survivors. No wreckage." Her voice was flat, but her hands were clenched. "You want revenge," Alice said. Morgana's eyes burned. "I want answers. I want to know who they are, what they want, why they left me alive." The words hung between them, heavy,
Raw.
Alice stared at her. For a moment, Morgana didn't seem like a pirate captain. She seemed broken.
Real. Human.
"You know this might get you killed," Alice said. "Yes. And you're taking them with you anyway?" Morgana looked toward the sea. "They chose to follow me. I never force loyalty. I earn it." That struck something in Alice. A painful, uncomfortable truth. Because it was true. These women didn't follow Morgana because they feared her. They followed because they believed in her. She had earned them. And Alice hated that she respected it. That some part of her wanted to believe in it too. She turned to leave, then hesitated. "You're not what I thought you were," she said without looking back. "Neither are you," Morgana replied. That night, as the Leviathan veered east, the wind changed. The mist came slowly, first a distant shimmer on the horizon, then thicker, heavier, until the sky itself vanished. The veil. Alice stood on the deck, heart pounding, surrounded by women who had become something she hadn't asked for. A crew. She didn't trust Morgana. Not fully. Maybe not even half. But something was pulling her toward this path now. And she wasn't sure she wanted to turn back. The veil was not mist. It was something alive. Something breathing. Alice had imagined fog, light, shifting, harmless. But what wrapped around the Leviathan was thick as smoke and cold as breath on glass. It moved unnaturally, curling along the deck in tendrils that clung to skin and whispered across bare arms like fingers. No stars. No sun. Only gray. Days passed, or what felt like days. Time didn't behave the same inside the veil. The crew grew quieter, restless. Even Rena, normally all grin and sarcasm, had gone silent, her eyes darting to the mist like it might bite her. Alice kept close to the others, though she wouldn't admit to herself it was for comfort. Morgana, in contrast, seemed utterly unchanged, calm, focused, utterly in command. It only made her more unsettling. Every order was precise. Every movement measured. But there was a tension in her shoulders Alice hadn't noticed before. A stillness too deliberate. She was holding something in. Something big. And Alice could feel it pulsing between them, like the pull of a tide. On what must have been the 5th day, Sabine called down from the crow's nest. Land. The fog parted just enough to reveal it. An island, jagged and dark, rising from the sea like a broken tooth. Trees clustered around its edges, bent by wind and time. The beach was narrow and steep, and on it rested the shattered remains of a ship. Not the Leviathan. Not any known vessel. Something old. Burned through. Morgana's jaw tightened. Anchor. We go ashore. The crew prepared quickly, silence their only companion. Alice watched them move like clockwork. Fear sharpened their edges, but their loyalty held them steady. Morgana approached Alice just before the landing boat was lowered. "You're coming." It wasn't a question. Alice bristled.
Why?
"So I don't see too much again." Morgana's eyes met hers. "Because I trust your instincts. Even if you don't." Alice wanted to argue. Wanted to say, "I don't trust you in return." But the words didn't come. She climbed into the boat. The island was worse up close. The air was thick with rot and salt. Bones littered the beach, fish, birds, and other things not so easily named. The wrecked ship bore no name, but Morgana studied its hull with a stare so intense it felt like pain. "You know this ship," Alice said quietly. Morgana didn't answer. Instead, she moved toward a part of the deck that had collapsed inward. "Help me," she ordered. Together, they cleared away the burned wood. Beneath it, hidden by time and ash, was a rusted iron lockbox. Morgana dropped to her knees and pried it open. Inside was a collection of letters, soaked, crumbling, but still legible in parts, and a single necklace, a coin on a leather string, etched with a serpent wrapped around a rose. Morgana's fingers trembled as she lifted it. Alice had never seen her tremble before. "Who did this belong to?" she asked. Morgana stood. Her face was carved in stone. "My sister." The word hit Alice like a wave. "You never said you had." "Because she's dead." Morgana's voice cracked, just slightly. This was her ship. She captained it. She brought me with her when no one else would. She taught me everything. And then she took this route, through the veil. They found her. The devil lantern found her. Alice's breath caught. "So this is revenge." "No," Morgana said bitterly. "It's guilt. I told her not to come. I begged." She laughed. "Said I was too cautious. I watched her sail into the mist and never come back. And then I saw the ship again years later. Just like hers. But different. Hollowed out. Red-eyed. And I knew. Something out here takes us. Twists us. Kills us. Or worse." Alice looked at the necklace in Morgana's hand, now curled into a tight fist. "So you came to bury her?" "No," Morgana whispered. "I came to find out if there's anything left of her at all." The mist thickened suddenly, curling along the edges of the trees like it had been listening. Sabine shouted from the beach. "Captain, something's moving in the trees." Weapons were drawn. The crew circled up, tense, silent. A shape emerged, slow, unsteady. It was a woman, barefoot, clothes in tatters. Her hair matted. She walked like something half-drowned. Alice stepped forward instinctively. "She's alive." Morgana's arm shot out, stopping her.
No.
"Look closer." And then Alice saw it. The woman's eyes glowed faintly red. Her smile was too wide, too wrong. And behind her, more figures emerged. All women. All glowing. All smiling. Morgana's voice dropped to a growl. "Run." The beach exploded into chaos. Screams. Movement. Alice ran with the others, ducking through branches and roots, stumbling over rocks as the possessed women chased them without sound. No battle cries, no threats, just the soft scrape of bare feet on sand. They reached the boats. Rena pushed Alice in first, cutting the rope loose as another glowing woman reached for the edge. Morgana slashed her blade across the creature's arm. It didn't bleed. It hissed. Then it smiled wider. They shoved off. The row back was frantic, hands blistered from speed, hearts pounding. Only when they reached the Leviathan did anyone breathe again. Morgana collapsed to her knees as they pulled her aboard, the necklace still clutched tight in her fist. Alice stared at her, at the pain that no longer hid behind armor. She should have walked away. She should have gone below deck, locked herself in, and pretended none of it mattered. But instead, she knelt beside Morgana and placed a hand on her arm. "She died fighting," Alice said softly. "You honored her by coming back." Morgana didn't speak. But she didn't pull away either. That night, The fog thickened once more. The Leviathan drifted quietly through haunted waters. And in the darkness, Alice lay awake, wondering when the moment had come that she stopped dreaming of escape and started wanting answers. 2. The fog didn't lift. Even after the Leviathan fled the island, even after the red-eyed women faded into the trees and the island itself vanished behind a wall of mist, the fog clung to the ship like a curse. It had weight.
Taste.
It seeped into fabric and lungs and dreams. The crew tried to return to routine, but something had shifted. Conversations were quieter. Eyes darted to shadows. Rena stopped joking. Mira woke screaming from nightmares. And one by one, small cracks began to form in the hull of their unity. On the third night, a fight broke out. Sabine accused another sailor of whispering in her ear while she slept. The woman denied it, swore she hadn't even been in the same room. Morgana broke the fight up with a snarl, dragging both of them apart with terrifying strength. But Alice saw the worry behind her fury. This wasn't ordinary fear. This was something else. Something creeping. Alice felt it too. Her dreams were no longer her own. She saw the island, the women, the glowing eyes. But worse, she saw Morgana drowning, calling out to her, and Alice frozen on the shore, unable to move. She awoke each time breathless, skin damp, heart racing. The ship felt tighter.
Smaller.
As if the veil hadn't stayed behind at all but had come with them. Morgana spent most of her time in the war room now, charting obsessively, staring at maps as if they held some hidden escape. Alice stayed away at first. She had every reason to keep her distance. But by the 6th night, after too many sleepless hours, she climbed the steps and pushed the door open without knocking. Morgana sat hunched over the table, candlelight painting sharp shadows on her face.
Her coat was off.
Her sleeves rolled. She looked tired.
Raw.
Human. "You're not sleeping," Alice said quietly. Morgana didn't look up. "Neither are you." "We brought something back with us," Alice said. "Didn't we?" Morgana sighed. "I don't know." "That's not like you," Alice said, stepping inside. "Not knowing." "Then get used to it," Morgana snapped. "The veil doesn't follow rules. It doesn't answer questions. It just takes." She closed her eyes briefly. "And I don't know what it took from us. Not yet." The room fell silent. The candle flickered between them. Alice leaned against the wall, watching her. The crew's scared. They should be. "You're scared too." Morgana looked up sharply. "I don't get scared." "You do," Alice said softly. "You just hide it better." Morgana stood suddenly, pushing back from the table, pacing to the edge of the room. "I can't afford to fall apart. Not when they're looking to me. Not when I brought them into this." "You didn't drag them into anything," Alice said. "They followed you." Morgana turned to her. "You didn't." The words hit harder than they should have. Alice straightened.
"No."
"I didn't." "Then why are you still here?" Morgana's voice was low, cutting. "You've had chances to jump ship. To run. So, why haven't you?" Alice didn't answer at first. Because she didn't know. Because the truth felt too fragile. Too close. Finally, she said, "Because something changed. Because I don't know who I am off this ship anymore." Morgana stepped forward. Slowly. Deliberately. "You think I don't see you, Alice? The way you hold back, the way you look at me like I'm something dangerous. Like you're waiting to hate me again, just so you don't have to admit you don't." The air thickened between them. Not with fog, but with something hotter. Sharper. Alice's pulse kicked up. "You are dangerous," she said. "Not because you'll hurt me. Because you won't." Morgana froze. Her breath hitched. "What do you want from me, Alice?" "I don't know," she said, barely more than a whisper. "But I can't stop wanting it." Morgana's eyes flicked to her lips. Just for a second. Alice stepped closer. Their hands didn't touch, but they were close. Too close. Her voice broke. "Why haven't you kissed me?" Morgana's jaw clenched. "Because if I do, I won't stop." The silence stretched. Alice's heart pounded so loudly she thought it might drown the creaking of the ship. She looked up at Morgana and said, Then don't start. Morgana stepped back. A single breath. 1 inch. Enough to keep them apart. Enough to say, not yet. And then she turned away. Get out of here, she muttered. Before I forget, I'm trying to be better than this. Alice didn't move.
Didn't speak.
Then slowly, without another word, she left. But her skin was still burning. Her chest still aching. And she knew, the next time Morgana looked at her like that, she wouldn't walk away. Morgana didn't sleep. She stood alone in her quarters, breathing hard, fists clenched at her sides like holding back something feral. Alice's words echoed in her skull. Then don't start. She had wanted to kiss her. Gods, she still did. It burned through her restraint like fire-eating rope. But she hadn't. She couldn't. Not with the fog wrapping around her ship, like a curse. Not with the veil still lingering inside them all. Not when the risk of losing everything was so sharp it made her bleed. And yet, when the knock came at her door just before dawn, soft and uncertain, she knew exactly who it was. She opened it without hesitation. Alice stood there, hair damp from sea spray, face half-shadowed by the lantern light.
She didn't speak.
Neither did Morgana. They stared at each other for a long, breathless second. Then Alice stepped in, closed the door behind her, and said, I'm not walking away this time. And Morgana broke. She reached for Alice with a roughness that was all desperation, all restraint undone. Their mouths met in a clash of heat and breath, all tension and fury and surrender. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was months of resistance detonating in a single kiss. Morgana pushed her back against the door, hands tangled in her shirt, and Alice pulled her closer, gasping against her lips like breathing wasn't enough anymore unless it was inside this moment. They didn't speak. There were no words for this. Only the taste of salt and fire, only the tremor in Morgana's hands, and the way Alice's body curved into hers like she'd been waiting for this shape her whole life. When they broke apart, it was slow, reluctant. Morgana leaned her forehead against Alice's, eyes closed. This was a mistake, she whispered. Then, why does it feel like the first thing that's real? Alice breathed. Morgana opened her eyes. Because it is. The knock at the door shattered the silence. Urgent. Rena's voice came muffled through the wood. Captain. Trouble. Morgana didn't answer. Alice pulled away first, chest rising and falling, fingers brushing her lips like she didn't trust what just happened.
Later, she said.
Morgana nodded. Later. On deck, chaos had returned. But not from the fog. From within. Sabine stood in the center of the ship, a blade drawn, eyes wild. Beside her, 2 other crew members, pale, sweating, trembling like fevered animals. They're not themselves, Rena warned. They started muttering in their sleep. Then the one on the left, Idra, tried to cut her own skin open. Morgana pushed forward. Sabine. Stand down. They're infected, Sabine hissed. Whatever we brought back, it's inside them. Alice stared at the 2 women. Their eyes weren't glowing, but something in them wasn't right. Something was missing. Or replaced. One of them looked straight at Alice and smiled. Not with recognition, but with hunger. Morgana stepped between them. Put them in the brig. Don't harm them unless you have no choice. We don't have a brig, Rena muttered. We're not that kind of ship, remember? Then make one, Morgana growled. The crew moved fast. Ropes. Shackles. A locked storage bay transformed into a cell. The possessed or sick or cursed or whatever they were didn't fight. They just watched, smiled, whispered to each other in a language no one understood. That night, no one slept. Morgana stood at the helm, eyes on the water. Alice joined her in silence. After a long pause, she said, You think it's the island? I think it's her, Morgana said, voice hoarse. My sister. Or what's left of her. Alice's throat tightened. You think she's still alive?
No, Morgana said.
I think she's become something else. Something that wants us to follow her back into the fog. The wind shifted.
Cold. Wrong.
Alice's skin prickled. We have to get out of the veil. We can't, Morgana said.
Not yet.
The fogs closed in behind us. So we're trapped. Not forever. Morgana looked at her then. There's a way out. I just haven't found it yet. Alice studied her in the dark. When you kissed me, she said, voice quiet. It didn't feel like someone who wanted to get out alone. Morgana's face was unreadable. I'm not leaving without you. The words hit like a tide.
Fierce.
Final. Alice stepped closer. Then don't shut me out again. Morgana hesitated. I don't know how to let someone stay.
Try, Alice said.
Morgana didn't answer. But she didn't look away either. And that, for now, was enough. Just before dawn, the fog broke. Not completely, but enough. A sliver of open sea beyond the mist. A glimpse of stars above.
Hope.
The crew erupted in cautious relief. But Alice couldn't shake the feeling that the worst hadn't passed. It was only just beginning. The sky above the Leviathan split open like a wound. For the first time in what felt like eternity, light poured through the mist, a weak, pale sun bleeding across the waves. The fog didn't vanish, but it loosened, thinned, parted in ribbons instead of walls. A cheer went up from the crew, hoarse and disbelieving. Alice gripped the railing, breath caught in her throat. Freedom. It looked close enough to taste. Morgana stood still at the helm, her eyes narrowed, jaw tight. She didn't cheer. She didn't smile. It's not natural, she said. Fog doesn't move like that on its own. Alice looked at her. Then what's doing it? Morgana pointed across the water. In the distance, a shape emerged, long, low, and unmoving. An island, small and sharp-edged, more like a black stone rising from the sea than land. No trees, no sand, just jagged rock and, at its center, a massive stone archway. Carved into it, barely visible from this distance, a symbol, a serpent devouring its own tail. Morgana's face went pale. She's calling us. Alice's heart sank. Your sister? Morgana didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the crew. Prepare the longboat. Only 4 of us go ashore. That's madness, Rena said. We just got a glimpse of freedom, and now we're rowing toward the monster again? We don't leave this place unless we go through that arch, Morgana said flatly. It's a door. A lock. A toll gate. She's giving us a choice. Alice stepped forward. Then I'm going with you. Morgana didn't argue. She just nodded. Rena and Sabine joined as well, their loyalty outweighing fear. The rowboat cut through the water like a whisper. Silence wrapped around them. The sea was too still. No birds. No breeze. Just the looming presence of the island and the arch at its heart. When they landed, the air changed, heavy, humming, thick with tension. The arch pulsed faintly.
Alive.
A whisper curled in the back of Alice's mind. Her name. Her real name. Not the one she used when she ran from her old life. Not the one she gave to survive. But the one she buried. Morgana gripped her arm suddenly. Don't listen to it, she said. Her voice was hoarse, eyes glassy. She speaks in memories. In regret. It's not real. It feels real, Alice whispered. That's the trap. They stood before the arch. No guards. No barrier. Just stone and shadow. Then a voice rang out. Not from the arch, but from behind it. Familiar.
Soft.
Morgana. A figure stepped forward, and Alice knew, without doubt, that it was her. Morgana's sister. Or the shell of what she had once been. Her skin was wrong. Too smooth, too pale. Her eyes glowed faintly red. But her smile was kind. Loving. You came, she said. Morgana's face crumpled. I looked for you. I thought you were dead. I was, her sister said. But the veil is generous. It gives second chances. You can have yours too. All of you. She turned to the others. The arch will open. You may leave, but one of you must stay. The words hung in the air like ice. Stay. Rena asked. Why? The veil takes balance, the sister said. One soul for one release. Blood for passage. It is the way. That's not a choice, Sabine growled. That's a trap. It's truth, the sister said. Then she turned to Morgana. You know this. You were marked the moment you survived. That's why you brought them back. To give the veil what it's owed. Morgana shook her head.
No.
I came to end this. Then make your choice, the sister said gently. Or you all stay. The world spun. The arch loomed. Morgana stepped forward, fists clenched. I'll stay. No, Alice said immediately. Don't you dare. This is my burden, Morgana said. My sister. My debt. It ends with me.
We need you, Alice said.
I need you. Morgana's eyes met hers. And I'd rather lose myself than lose you. Then it's not love, Alice snapped, voice trembling. Because real love doesn't abandon. It fights. So don't you dare trade yourself like you're nothing. Silence fell. Morgana's expression cracked. I thought you hated me. I did, Alice whispered. But now I don't know what I'd become without you. Morgana stepped back.
Torn.
The sister watched with something like amusement, head tilted. Choose, she said again. Rena stepped forward suddenly. I'll do it.
No, Sabine said.
If anyone, stop, Alice said. Her voice cut through the noise. She turned to Morgana. There's another way. There isn't, Morgana said. That's what the veil wants us to believe, Alice replied. That we have to play by its rules. But it's been feeding on our guilt, our shame, our silence. What if that's the key? She stepped toward the arch. What if we stop hiding from who we were? What we lost? Morgana's voice trembled. Alice, don't. But Alice kept walking. Her voice rang out. My name is Elira. I ran from it. From everything I was. I let people die to save myself. I told myself survival was enough. But it wasn't. Not until I met her. The arch began to pulse faster. I'm not giving myself to you, Alice said to the veil. I'm reclaiming what you thought you stole. My name. My voice.
My will.
The air cracked. Lightning flashed. The arch split down the center. And then, silence. A path opened through it. Beyond, clear sea. Blue sky. The veil was breaking. Morgana stared at her, stunned. Then her expression softened, full of awe, of something close to reverence. Elira, she whispered. You remembered. Alice turned, heart pounding. I remembered everything. And without thinking, she took Morgana's hand. Let's go home. The sky stretched open like a promise. Blue, endless, impossible. The fog was gone. The veil had finally released them, but the sea felt different now, quieter, as if holding its breath. The Leviathan sailed steadily into open waters, sails full and taut, crew quiet, dazed, unsure how to return to normal after what they'd seen. No one spoke of the arch, of the sister, who wasn't a sister anymore, of the voice that had whispered names no one else knew. They simply moved, task by task, as if clinging to routine would steady their thoughts. Alice, Elira, stood at the bow, wind in her hair, heart still tangled in everything she'd felt on that island. Morgana hadn't spoken much since they returned to the ship. She gave orders calmly, competently, but there was something hollow in her voice. Something distant. Elira watched her from afar, unsure if she was waiting to be pulled closer or pushed away again. That night, when the stars returned in full above them, Morgana came to her. No words, just the sound of boots on deck, the scent of sea and storm. Elira turned. Their eyes met. For a long, suspended moment, neither said anything. Then Morgana said softly, You remembered who you were. I remembered who I want to be, Elira replied. And I don't want to forget again. Morgana looked away. I almost let the sea take me. Again. But you didn't, Elira said. Because this time you weren't alone. Morgana nodded slowly. That's what terrified me the most. They sat together on the deck, backs against the railing. The stars stretched above them in perfect silence. Morgana let out a long breath. When I was young, before the Leviathan, before my sister took me in, I didn't think love was something meant for people like us. Women who chose the sea. Who didn't belong to anyone. who didn't ask permission. I didn't think I was allowed to feel anything at all, Elira admitted. For years, I lived pretending I wasn't even there, that if I disappeared into the crowd, no one could break me again. Morgana looked at her. But here you are. And here you are, Elira said. They didn't touch. Not yet. But something passed between them, warmer than any fire. They sat like that for a long time. No need to name what was growing between them. It had survived storms, ghosts, and the darkness of their own pasts. It didn't need a label to be real. The next day brought signs of life. Rena joked again. Mira sang softly while scrubbing the deck. Even Sabine cracked a smile. The fog had left scars, but it hadn't taken their spirits. Not completely. But peace never lingered long at sea. Just before midday, the bell rang twice. A signal. Trouble spotted on the horizon. Elira and Morgana reached the crow's nest just in time to see it. The devil lantern, trailing smoke, limping, but not dead. It had followed them, or waited for them to come back. Morgana's jaw clenched. She's not finished with us. What does she want now? Elira asked. To remind us that freedom always has a cost, Morgana said, and that nothing that powerful dies easily. The crew armed themselves, not with panic, but with grim purpose. This time, they were ready. Morgana stood before them, tall and steady. We survived the veil. We faced what was waiting inside us. This ship didn't carry us through that because it's lucky. It carried us because we chose not to break, not to bow. And we're going to choose that again. The women cheered, not wild, but fierce. Elira stood at Morgana's side. You're not alone, she said. Morgana looked at her, and for the first time, there was no wall behind her eyes. Only trust. The devil lantern drew closer, its hull scorched, its sails torn, but its red lantern still burning. The sea held its breath once more. The final storm was coming, and this time, they would face it together. The sea held its breath. The devil lantern approached like a ghost that refused to rest, sails torn but still catching wind, the red lantern at its bow pulsing like a dying heart. Smoke curled from its hull, but the ship moved with purpose, deliberate, unnatural, as if drawn not by sails, but by something older, darker. On the deck of the Leviathan, Morgana stood at the helm, one hand gripping the wheel, the other resting near her sword. Elira stood beside her, her expression unreadable, but her presence steady. Around them, the crew moved with quiet determination. There was no panic, no screams. They had already faced their nightmares and walked through the worst sea imaginable. This was just the final wave. What's the plan? Elira asked, her voice calm. Morgana's eyes remained on the horizon. We don't outrun it. And we don't hide. We face it head-on. And if it's not just a ship, then we become more than just survivors. As the devil lantern drew closer, Morgana raised her voice. Cannons at the ready.
Archers high.
Hold fire until my signal. The crew snapped into position. Sabine at the portside gun. Rena, with 2 daggers drawn. Mira clutching the rail, lips moving in a silent prayer. Elira turned to Morgana. You've carried this weight for so long. Let me share it now. Morgana looked at her, and for the first time, her smile held no bitterness. Only gratitude. You already have. The enemy ship was close now, so close that the creak of its wood echoed across the waves. And then silence. The devil lantern stopped. No anchor dropped. No voices called out. Just the red glow burning through the mist. And then, without warning, something moved. Figures stepped onto its deck. Women, dozens of them, their faces blank, their eyes glowing faintly. Elira's breath caught. She recognized some of them. Not personally, but in the way you recognize grief. The lost. The taken. And at the front of them all stood Morgana's sister. Or what remained of her. Morgana. The voice rang out, calm and cold. You made your choice. But the sea doesn't forget. Morgana stepped forward. Neither do I. You left me, the sister said. I begged you to come back. I did. Morgana said, her voice steady. I came back. I faced what you became. And I chose to live. The sister tilted her head. Then die with them. A howl rose, unnatural and piercing, and the possessed surged forward. Ropes launched across the space between ships. Grappling hooks bit into wood. The battle began. The Leviathan erupted into motion, steel clashing, orders shouted, bodies colliding. Elira fought beside Morgana, blade flashing in the storm of movement. But they weren't just fighting creatures. They were fighting memories, illusions, the weight of what could have been. One by one, the crew held their ground. Rena fought with fire in her veins. Sabine blocked every strike thrown her way. Mira pulled wounded back to safety. Morgana was a storm in human form, moving through the chaos with precision and fury. And Elira, she was no longer running. She met the darkness with eyes wide open. She moved with purpose, cutting through shadow not just with steel but with voice. You are not forgotten, she whispered to each woman she faced. But you are not mine to carry anymore. One by one, the enemy faltered, faded, like mist burning off under the morning sun. And then, Morgana's sister stood before them. No weapon, no threat, just eyes filled with sorrow. You could have saved me. Morgana lowered her sword. No, she said softly, but I can save them. She reached out, not with anger, not with force, but with love. Her sister took a step forward and smiled. Just once. A real smile. Then the wind shifted. The red lantern dimmed. The enemy ship began to sink, not with fire or explosion, but with peace, with surrender, with release. The sea took it gently, and the mist followed. And when the silence returned, it was true.
Clean.
Final. The crew stood battered, bruised, but alive. Morgana turned to Elira, blood on her brow, tears in her eyes. It's over. Elira stepped into her arms. It's just beginning. That night, the stars returned in full, glittering across the sky so clear it felt like a blessing. The crew gathered on deck, not to mourn, but to breathe, to remember who they were, to choose what they'd become. Morgana and Elira stood side by side at the helm, the sea stretching wide before them. Where to now, Captain? Elira asked. Morgana smiled, soft and real. Anywhere we want. Even home. Especially home. Wherever that may be. Elira reached for her hand. Then let's find it. And together, they sailed into the dawn, not as prisoner and captor, not as captain and stowaway, but as something stronger. As women who had claimed their place on the sea and in each other's hearts. The storm was over. The tide had turned. And love, finally, had its horizon. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See you in the next video.